Hi guys! So I'm sorry for the setup. I tried my best. You should see it. You're like leaning against my wallet on some business cards to be propped up because my dashboard kind of goes at an angle. Anyway, I tried. But I actually have not really vlogged at all this week. It's been kind of a crazy busy week with school stuff, of course, for our kiddo. And yeah, it just kind of has gotten away from me. But the plan is today to go home and film for you guys an empties and finish school. But right now, I'm actually in my car, as you can tell. And my kiddo is in an appointment right now. And so I thought, you know, use the time you have, right? My hair is still like partially drying. A mess. So since my last vlog from last week, I titled it, I believe it was our first week of homeschool, week 1, something like that. And I got a lot of like questions, even before that too, when we had mentioned homeschool, but specifically on that video of just, you know, why we're doing homeschool, questions about it, and questions about, you know, just so much with it that I completely relate to. And I thought, and I've actually gotten some people too that wanted, you know, you should do a video on like why you're doing it, you know, all that. And I'm not opposed to doing it by any means, but I also, because we're still very, very new at this, of, you know, really we're in week 2. And so, I mean, I don't feel like a pro by any means, but I feel like still people would like my insight on it or still just are curious. And so I thought I could turn this into that and kind of, I've commented back to you guys as best as I can of, you know, answering your questions, but just as a more response to all of it in one video for you guys. So let me give you a little bit of background, and if you are new here, hi, my name is Kimberly, and when I say we, my husband and I, Nate, have a son. We have one child, and he is currently in 2nd grade and 7 years old. But to give a little background, you know, right now, in fact, I am actually at his appointment, just waiting for him for his speech therapy that he still goes to. And this is something that we started with him when he was 3.5 years old. We were actually a little bit late. Usually if a child in general, just so you know, is having any kind of speech delay or, you know, trouble with speech in general, typically they like to start that when they're around 2. So we were a little late on that because I think, you know, first child, mother's denial and all that of just like, you know, no, he'll grow into it and he's just spoiled. We do everything for him so he doesn't have to talk. And although that can be true, I think in a way we did definitely get to a late start with that. However, with that, he has been going to private speech therapy since then. And again, he's 7 now and he still goes. And we still go to the same place and we adore his therapist, like adore her. And so we've held on to that. But with that too, he is only going once every other week now versus weekly. And I think possibly when we first started, it was like twice a week and stuff. Anyway, point is, you know, he in some ways doesn't even really need it anymore, but now it's more of like for the true speech, but now it's kind of like, you know, using the words in the correct tenses and forming actual complete sentences, all that. So it's not just like speech of true words. That's all there now. So anyway, so that's what, you know, was our first kind of exposure to, in a sense, education, if you want to call it that, of, you know, needing help, needing services, and being concerned of, you know, is there anything else that, you know, he's going to need? Is he going to struggle? Blah, blah, blah. I actually have a video, it's old, but I can link it below, of our experience with speech therapy in general. So, I mean, if you have a child with that, or you're concerned about that, I can link that below and just give you a little more insight too. Anyway, a lot of the times that in itself, when there's a speech delay issue of some sort, a lot of the times a red flag that can come up is autism. it just kind of does go hand in hand as a concern or something to kind of look out for at that age, and that being something that the child is struggling with. So of course that was something that we definitely went through of, you know, screening and testing and all that, and that fortunately did not come back as an issue, although he does definitely have like some, but it's so hard because there's so many kids that have little quirks, and, you know, it doesn't mean that that's necessarily what it is, but they kind of, like, that kind of goes hand in hand with what they screen for to diagnose too. It's really difficult. It really is. So with that, it was just, you know, speech as the, you know, focus of just, you know, getting that caught up and working with that. So that helped a lot, but I'll tell you, at like 3.5, he didn't even, if you have children, you could like imagine this, but at 3.5, we could ask him a question and he couldn't even respond yes or no. And it wasn't even so much that like the word wasn't there entirely. He had some, but it was, you know, the comprehension part of like not understanding that yes means yes and no means no when you ask a question. And so that was very, very hard. That was a struggle for sure. Anyway, I just want to give you guys some of this like background too, because it does fall into, you know, when he went to public school and now and everything. So went to preschool. That was tough on him. I think it was a maturity thing. And, you know, he was 3 actually when we started that, or late 3, almost 4. And he just wasn't used to that environment of a lot of kids, and because again, being only child, it just wasn't really a great experience. But we wanted to do it because we wanted him to get used to the idea of being around a lot of kids and that, you know, schooling environment. Makes sense. Well, that's mostly, I think, why a lot of parents do it. So that was that we did that for about a year. Then kindergarten rolls around, right? And regular kindergarten, public school, you know, half days is what at least it is in California, of like, I think they started around like 7:30, 8 o'clock, and then ended around like 1, something like that. Whereas when you do first grade and up, it ends around like 3-ish. So it's not that much difference, but a few hours. And at that time, you know, the speech part had come so far. He could, again, speak pretty much any words, but it was still kind of using them in the right context. And when asked certain questions, sometimes he just didn't know how to form that reply, that answer. So it was definitely still behind, but it was night and day from when we first started. But at that time, you know, that was a big concern for the school, and they started an IEP, which is an individualized education plan. You'll hear that IEP term. And basically what that is, I always looked at it as like this horrible thing of like, oh my God, I got to test my kid and all this, but really it's not a bad thing. In fact, I almost feel like every kid in a way should have one, because I think every kid, whether they can like fit in pretty well through everything, there's always probably something with a child that is not going to click the way that they hope it will right away. And so if there's some kind of, you know, support that can be given to that child for that thing, I think it's great. So that's what I mean, is I feel like in a way everyone should have one, because you just never know what someone might benefit from. But that is the point of an IEP, is that they can then take the results of whatever it is they deem you as having a, you know, setback or being behind on, or whatever it is, you know, they can try to incorporate a solution for that and, you know, get what you need help wise. And sometimes that can be as simple as a stress ball. Seriously, it could be that, of just, this helps them stay focused. Great. They're still in the mainstream class, still in general ed, all that. But usually it is a little bit more than that. But so for him, it came back as a speech, again, was speech delay, and also focus. He's had a hard time staying focused. That is not denying that at all. And is it possible it's ADD, ADHD? Very possible. It's pretty common. It really is. But I also feel that like he is capable of learning still. It's not truly a intelligence problem. It's just how he learns and at what pace and how much can he stay on track with everyone else in a timely manner, however they want to call it, you know. So again, at that time in kindergarten, they deemed it a speech delay, and they actually call it other health impairment, which I guess really pretty much does mean ADD. Okay. With that, schools are not able to truly diagnose you, your child, your student, their student. They can't do that, but they can definitely say, you know, hey, based on the results, we do think autism could be something you might want to look into. And then you take that to your doctor to get tested fully and diagnosed if you choose to at that time. Point is, they still can't fully say your child is. They can just kind of, if that makes sense. So again, that came back though, even in kindergarten, that wasn't the concern. It wasn't that, as far as like autism, because they do have autism classes, which is great, but he didn't really fall in line with that. And so, but what happened is they still wanted to put him in a special day class, where they would work on incorporating him back into the general ed class over time, and you know, that way he would still, you know, be given the same work but he would get one-on-one. Now at the time this sounded great. It really did, and it wasn't all bad. But here's a child in kindergarten who is being given the same work and expected to do the same work as what is done in a general ed setting, which I was glad about, because again, you don't want your child to really fall behind and still be diploma track, right? But at the same time, in the special day class environment, they learn and they work with kids at a much, much slower pace. And so although I agree with that part, and I think that part's great, it kind of doesn't go hand in hand though, because the paces are so different in those two classes, but they're trying to do the same work. Does that make sense? So again, though, he did keep up with it pretty well in kindergarten, and that worked, and that was that. It was a little frustrating because it was like even when we moved into our house, we picked the house not only because we loved it, but also because of the school district it was in and where we knew he'd go to school, blah, blah, blah. Pretty common for parents, I think, to do that when they make a decision to buy a home or where they're going to live. And so we had him set up to go in our minds to the school he was at. But it turns out that special class that he needed to go to was at a completely different school. Yes, in the same district, but a different school. And so he had to go to a different school. So now we're on to like school number 3, based on preschool, kindergarten, special kindergarten. And we've never moved. So that finished off kindergarten. First grade came around, same thing. Was going to be in that same kind of environment, stay there, do that. And that was okay. First grade wasn't terrible. It was okay. But again, in the back of your mind, you still have that fear that like, is he falling behind based on what every other first grader is expected to know and do? So, you know, we did our best. Another thing was too, is like when they're in that special class and have an IEP and stuff, they don't really have to have homework. Now, we always requested it because again, in real mainstream class, they do. And so it was like these things that you hear of like, oh, well, that's kind of cool, you don't have homework and stuff, but really that's not realistic, right? And so it was just those little things that were kind of in the back of our mind, like how good is this for him? And at that time in first grade too, they really weren't incorporating him back into the mainstream environment much. They counted the time of that in like recess time and lunch and stuff as hours in mainstream, and I'm like, no, not really. I mean, yes and no, not in a true classroom environment where you're expected to sit still and focus and listen and all the things that they had concerns with. That wasn't really being worked on. So then second grade comes around, and that's where we're at now. And different school because the program of that special class moved again. So again, now another school. We haven't moved. And it's just like, it just sucks because it's like we didn't even, uproot him. This is what was been happening. But not the end of the world, just kind of annoying. So, this last year though, being in the special day class, I loved his teacher. His teacher was amazing. There was no complaints there. However, pretty much, I don't want to speak out of turn, but pretty much the remainder of the kids in that special class, there was about 4 to 5 kids in the class, were all there. Pretty much all of them were there because on their IEP was for emotionally disturbed. I didn't even fully know what that meant, really. I still don't, to be honest, exactly what that means. But it's very, very different than someone who has a speech delay or other health impairment, ADD. I'll just say that. That's where he was at daily, all day. And, second grade is maybe not, hardcore, but the work changed. The expectation of what he was supposed to know definitely changed a lot in comparison to first grade. And some of the stuff when I was talking to his teacher of what he was expected to know and do, I'm like, what? Like, he's not even close. And that was a concern because she's sending home these papers of, he needs to know how to read this and then answer these kinds of questions to be tested on. And one of them, I'll just tell you guys, was on the EPA. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, EPA. And I'm like, what? Like, I just can't. I was so just thrown off of, oh, we are behind. But come to find out, that is insane. So, but still, that's just kind of what it was at. Of he is falling behind at this point. We can now say that. This is not working. And he was coming home telling us things that was going on in the classroom with the other kids. And apparently cops were called very often. Second grade, guys, second grade. He would tell me a lot of things that those kids would say to the teachers, and he would tell me straight up, and he was so nervous to tell me of he can't say those bad words, but I was like, no, you tell me, it's okay, you can tell me, you're telling me something you heard. Anyway, but I was hearing things and being told things that Nate and I both were we haven't even heard as a adult. It was intense, very intense, and not what we wanted for him. We just didn't know what we could do, though, too. You kind of felt stuck. It's he's still not able to go into a general ed classroom, and maybe even more so now not able to because he really hadn't had the time and practice, if you will, to adapt back into it. And that's where I kind of fault the system a little bit of, making recess and lunch that kind of time. That's not going to work, But again, where he was at was definitely not for him either at all. And it felt wrong as a parent to keep sending him there. And it was hitting a place where he didn't really dread school ever. And he was starting to, and he didn't want to be there. And he didn't want to go in the mornings. And I mean, I get every kid goes through I don't want to go. I want to stay home. But this was different. It was different. And it was noticeable. So that's when Nate and I decided, we need to maybe look at an alternative route. And being completely honest, Nate and I both came from public school our whole lives and did that like most people. And I was one of those people that thought people who homeschooled were weird, or homeschool was weird and it's not real school. I was guilty of that. I just didn't think it was right. However, so much has changed. So much has changed with that. And the types of homeschool programs have changed. And so we decided over winter break to kind of look into it. We do have some family that has 6 kids and they're all in this one homeschool charter school thing. And so I started there and I was like, I just wanted to ask her about it and what her thoughts are. Is it working for them? What she likes, doesn't like, how does it work? All that. And she loved it, gave me kind of the rundown of how her week to week goes, blah, blah, blah. And so that just kind of started us in that direction, you know, of let's go check this place out, see what it's about, learn about it. And that's what we did over winter break. We had about 2.5 weeks to like figure something out if we were going to change anything, and we thought it would be a good time because it was kind of that clean break. Sorry, there's like a loud truck behind me, but we walked into this charter school where it is primarily homeschool, but it is a charter school, and it was incredible. Like, these people were so helpful and understood all of our concerns and answered all of our questions, and it was just kind of like, maybe this is exactly what we were meant to do. One of my biggest concerns with homeschool, and especially because he's an only child, especially because of that, was the socialization part. And is he gonna have that by being homeschooled? Yeah, we can go and get together with friends and family, but how often really? But with this charter school, he actually will have classes weekly, once a week. It'll be all day, like a normal school day, like from 9 to 3:30, and that'll be once a week. And so again, once a week is not 5 days a week, but it is still a good amount of time in doing, you know, things with other kids, and they still do field trips. At that point too, as he gets comfortable and starts meeting more kids and stuff too, you know, we can start getting maybe together with those kids outside of just that, you know. This is the part that's going to take a little time, but that really made me a lot more comfortable because I really don't want him to not have that, you know. And a lot of you actually even made the point though, is like, when you have that concern, how much socialization are they really even getting at public school though too, when you really stop and think about it? Yes, at recess and lunch and that kind of thing, and I think it's important, I do, but really in the classroom environment, other than just being around them, they really don't socialize, you know. They're really not supposed to. It's supposed to be very like structured. Anyway, and again, in his case specifically, our child's case, it was really minimal, because he wasn't really, you know, corresponding much with the kids that were in his class based on the situation. So that was something that just definitely made me feel a lot better to go this route and not 100% homeschool, but have this / charter school. We are assigned a teacher, and that has been amazing. We can come to her every day. We can come to her once a week. I mean, whatever we need, she is there for us. And based on the things we told her about our son, she helped for hours go through what curriculum she would suggest for him. And we totally took that advice because we're so new at this, and we're like, yeah, please, thank you. Yeah. That sounds great. And if, you know, we're working on something when it comes to math and it's just not going well, or it's way over his head, or it's way too easy, whatever it is, you know, we can change that. We can go back to her and be like, I need something different. And she'll pull something different. It's all book based still, but they do have like online programs too, to like just as a bonus, but this is still all in workbooks, and we're actually even given the teacher's addition to these books so that we can make projects and, you know, learn how to teach a lot of it too. So it's really like you become kind of a teacher, like a public school teacher. The same stuff they're given, other than the true education of going to college and a credentialed. That's a little scary, I'm not gonna lie. I have a degree, but I do not have one in teaching. I don't have a credential. I think I'm capable at this stage right now, but you know, that is a concern too, of just like, okay, am I really though, as we go even more and more? I don't know. But They do give you as many materials as they can to help you, including the teacher and they are credentialed, and you can go to them as much as you want. So anyway, with that, it did make me feel better, but it was a concern for sure. And I mean, the joke's been, what are you doing? Oh, I just became a teacher today. It's a little weird, but yeah, so also, another big question was, what about like the standardized testing and, testing at that level to also get a diploma? Does he get a real diploma? And all of that within this charter school is, yes, he still does the standardized testing. Now, technically, it doesn't really start. The state standardized testing doesn't start till 3rd grade. So at this stage, no, but he wasn't really anyway. He will, and his curriculum is in line to prepare him for that. Even though there's a bunch you can choose from, you don't have to do a specific one. You are still given stuff that will pertain to the testing. Because it's still a state charter school, he will still receive a diploma, assuming he's doing this through high school, just like anybody else from a school. So that was good too. It was just good in our minds that, if this is something that we continue to do all the way through high school, he's still going to have the same, diploma like anyone else, still be able to go to college and apply to colleges and stuff if that's what he chooses. And just all these things that were so concerning to me were all answered, and really not much different at all. The difference is the primary teacher is you, is the parent. You have to sign a thing saying too that like you are available more than, basically you can't have like an outside job or an outside full-time job, because you have to be available, and it does take time. And, I luckily can do that. But I had to sign that saying that I can. But yeah, so I mean, again, I wasn't necessarily planning on doing a video right now of, why we're doing this or what it's like and all that, because I'm not a pro. And again, we're only a couple weeks in, but I did want to explain, since it was asked and requested, just kind of what I have learned as a newbie, just to give you a little insight that I was very wrong. I was very wrong on what homeschool can actually be like. I'm not generalizing this though. Maybe there are programs out there that are different and aren't diploma tracked. I don't know. But in our experience of what we found and the program we are doing in the school we are using, it is. And so that's why we're comfortable with it at this time. And, I've also been asked, is this something we plan to do all the way through? And to be honest, not necessarily. I mean, I say that because I'm not really having a long-term goal with it right now. This could change, but right now my focus is kind of year by year. Let's just see how this goes and then decide as we go. If he wants to try to go back to public school too, sure, I'm not really opposed to it, but it's more about what's going to work best for him and for us. And maybe it will, maybe it won't as far as homeschool goes, and maybe it will, maybe it won't as far as public school goes. I don't know. So I think that's also something to kind of maybe consider when you're thinking about it. Try not to look at it as a true long-term decision right now, because that's daunting, to go, well, we're going to do this for the next 12 years or whatever it is. And that's a lot. That's commitment. That's a kind of an unrealistic commitment, I feel like, because as a new person diving into this, because we just don't know. We don't know. And we don't know if this is for us until we give it time. But so far, so good. And I think that's okay. You can take this, month to month, semester to semester, year to year, whatever it is. But yeah, so I just thought that that's what I would do for you guys today, is take this time that I had to give you my thoughts and where we're at with it, and a little background to why it brought us to this idea and this decision and everything. So yeah, I hope it's a little insightful. I can see on my timer here on my phone that I'm already at 30 minutes. I apologize. But it's hard. It's hard to, you know, not give a full story, but yet give a reason why you're doing something, you know? So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Or just if you are considering it yourself, answer some questions too. And, you know, I think as a parent, we're going to always question if we're doing the right thing. No matter what it comes to, we're always going to question it, right? So just have peace in that. You're not alone. And we just do our best, you know? Anyway.